Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again. This is take 2, or maybe take 3 actually. I have come back to this one, started it again back from where it was because unfortunately I was doing a live reaction to this episode that I'm about to do a reaction to now on the HR podcast with Hugh Keir. And that's why I've gotten a copyright strike on one of my on my channel so far. So apparently you only get 3 copyright strikes and then your channel gets shut down. So I've already got one and I don't want to get any more. So I had to stop that whilst I was going through, and I've put that video on private instead of deleting it. And yeah, now I'm back here doing this again. So if you're here for this reaction, let's jump in.
That's enough of that. Tom Martinson, welcome back to HOF.
Thanks.
Thanks again. Okay, right. Straight into the questions. Our first question is from the inimitable patron, Coke, as we know him. Question number 1. Would you go to Afghanistan?
So as I said in the first reaction that I was doing, which was live, Coke, incredible gentleman, clearly a supporter of Mr. Hugh Keir and the HR podcast. He probably supports a bunch of other channels as well. I'm pretty sure he supports Brent Tucker's Tier 1 podcast too, and is kind enough to also spend some time and support my channel. And this is one of several requests that he made last year in around November, and I'm just getting to them now. He's been kind enough and patient enough with me to allow me to get to these just with everything on. So yeah, chipping away through it, but no doubt, no surprise, Coke has got questions in here, and it's always good to hear. So we'll jump back into this. Excuse me. I do remember the first question, or most of the first question that he's asked. So we'll see how we go with regards to whether or not I repeat myself. I probably stumbled a bit as I was trying to react to that first question anyway.
Afghanistan and film with the Taliban?
Yes, I would.
I had it in my head that you'd already done this for some reason.
So I was there. So long story, kind of short-ish. So I went back to Afghanistan with the BBC as a journalist and filmed with some of the interpreters who were being who had lost jobs in the British and American militaries and were being hunted by the Taliban or by its affiliates.
Now, I can't remember exactly what I said, right? But that has got to be a terrible experience for those local Afghanis that have risked their lives, basically, and no doubt the lives of their families, to be an interpreter, translator, a whole bunch of things you could look into that. And people have said and will likely say, oh, they're just doing that because they want to try to get a visa and, you know, they're part of the network and all that sort of stuff, and they just want to get asylum in another country, in a Western country, so that they can then be utilized to do and carry out other things. A whole bunch of things like that. Some people might say conspiracy theories. There may be some truth to it. There may not be. I don't know. I'm no expert in that space. But clearly this guy has been over there, and so hence Coke's question asking if he would go over back to Afghanistan and film with the Taliban. His answer was yes, he would. And then he gets into giving this explanation, some brief context, I suppose, in and around what he has done and some of the stuff from memory, what he was alluding into, some nature type stuff or whatever that he's been over there, but he can't talk about it yet. And what else did he say? Oh, I can't remember, but he's working on things anyway to potentially, so things might line up and he may be able to go back over there and do what the question is that's been put forward to him. So we'll see how it all goes, and I'll try not to butt in too much now that he's going through and going to be giving this context and information.
And one of those guys, through a collection of random events, ended up being the defense attorney for the Taliban. And I stayed in touch with him over a long period of time. And then when the Taliban took over, I started to try and work on going to Afghanistan and spending time with them and making a film about it. And long story short, that's progressing quite well. And so far, I have like an invitation that I'm just trying to formalize to go and do exactly that. So spend time with the Taliban and the Haqqanis.
That is interesting.
So I was there a month ago on a different project that hasn't been released yet, so I'm not allowed to really talk about. But it's nothing to do with the Taliban or any of the war. It's kind of a nature thing. So I was there, last month. It was great. It's the danger is very different now. It's not a kind of bombs and bullets kind of danger, or it used to be that if you were like when I was there with the BBC, you'd be driving around, and if you accidentally ran into a checkpoint that was run by the Taliban or one of the other groups, then things could go pretty badly pretty quickly. That all of that has now gone. It's much safer than it ever was. But the danger is, being accused of being a spy or something like that. I mean, obviously, they are very worried. Not worried, that's the wrong word, but they know how fragile their position is as the country's leadership. And so they're very worried about like people coming and spying and that sort of stuff. So as long as you can stay out of trouble and follow their rules, then you're fine.
Very interesting. It was good to hear him just sort of go through that without me butting in like I did the first time when I was doing this actually live. So apologies to anybody that might have been sat in there while I was doing the reaction live. I actually just forgotten, and then I saw that the live was showing, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, I'll just carry on. And then I realized, well, that's actually what got me that copyright strike. But I didn't know if this guy was military or ex-military, or if he was just a journalist. Turns out he is and was. So he is a veteran. He is ex-military. Sounds like he's ex-RAF, Royal Air Force. I'm guessing that's what that is. And he's served and done time tours or multiple tours in and out of Afghanistan, I assume, with the RAF, and no doubt has seen a fair bit. But I'm assuming because he mentioned the BBC, that he's since got out and he's working or serving as a journalist. He's right in terms of the thoughts that would be going on. I could only imagine from the Taliban around potentially being a spy. Do they want to let this guy come into the inner sanctum, so to speak, with regards to where they'll be? They'll have a whole bunch of processes in and around how they try to maintain their own security for individuals and for their locations and all that sort of stuff. So they'll have some checks and balances that this guy, Tom Martinson, I think was his name, will have to go through in order to be able to get access and go and do what it is that he's hoping to do. But it would still keep them on edge, I would imagine. The Taliban, that is.
I want to come on to that on the podcast.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just writing some notes down. All right, question number 2 for you. All of these questions actually from Coke.
I remember this one as well. I think this is as far as I got. The second question in regards to comparing how does the RAF stack up to Royal Marines or Parachute Regiment or infantry in general, I think was the gist of the question. But anyway.
Question number 2. How much of a difference, this is changing subjects, how much of a difference is there between the average standard of a RAF Reg soldier and the average Marine or paratrooper?
No way this is
and he
going.
said, does the 5 miler of death set you apart? Obviously, he's saying that tongue in cheek. You're never going to get away from it, Tom.
No.
Never going to get away from
it. We can stand.
The 5 miler of death, I'm not sure what that is, but there must be some sort of hearty physical testing piece of the RAF, maybe? Who knows?
Toe to toe with any power.
I have to say, for people listening, Tom has appeared on this podcast before and did a sterling job. So we talked through your military career there, basically, didn't we, on the first podcast? And it is, I would say that your experience in Afghanistan, Tom, was, I would describe it as relatively unique when you consider that relatively unique for someone who wasn't part of SF, for example. You're part of normal non-SF unit, but your experience is pretty unique. I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode, especially if you want to learn more about the RAF Regiment's role in Afghanistan and Tom's role in Afghanistan. Okay, so how much of a difference is there then between the average standard of a RAF Reg soldier?
I can only imagine the RAF's role in Afghanistan would have been huge, massively significant. Troops on the ground, boots on the ground, can't get into places without the RAF, can't get out of places without the RAF, so it all works together. So there's no denying or trying to play down or underestimate the service and the service that was provided by the RAF in any conflict, let alone Afghanistan.
And the average Marine or paratrooper.
Okay, so
this is the average.
Yeah, so I think average, I mean, they do different jobs. And so if you want someone who's going to yomp across the Falklands to go and assault a place, then you probably don't want the RAF Reg to do that. And
Why
so, because they're going to be worse at it than the Paras or the Marines. But if you want someone who a small unit that can adapt to stuff, so like drones at the moment, like anti-drone warfare. If you want people that can spend a lot of time around aircraft, so kind of know, like for example, on I left after all of this.
That's interesting what he is talking about. Small teams able to adapt from an RAF unit, like drones and the anti-drone warfare and that sort of thing. I'm super interested to know what that involves in terms of anti-drone warfare. What troops are doing. Are they jamming signals? Are they just using camouflage and concealment to disguise and hide where they are when drones and stuff are in the air? Like it's a tough space right now and highly effective for those that are using drones to their advantage for the work and the nature of warfare right now. But just hearing him talk about that briefly, without going into detail, I'd be really interested to hear from somebody that's been involved in doing that sort of stuff. It's almost like counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, counter surveillance, counter drones would be interesting. I'd love to know what it is that they're doing, how they're going about doing that.
This stuff, but I know, like on the F-35, there's bits of that plane that if you accidentally knock or accidentally shoot in the middle of a contact on an airfield or something, then things go pretty badly and it's like a lost strategic asset. And so the RAF Regiment are very good at like that sort of stuff. I think in terms of...
Makes sense. You'd want to have, I would assume you'd want to have somebody with that sort of experience from a RAF background on a job if you were going in and doing hits on an airfield and hits on assets like aircraft and that sort of thing.
General infantry stuff, I'd say the RAF Regiment is a slightly above average, but I don't know really how they stack up against the the Marines, right? Or something.
They have a selection, do they?
I mean, sort of. It's kind of, I think it's more like...
It's funny. They have a selection. Do they have a selection? Sort of. Like in my head, there's either a selection or there isn't. So I've never heard anybody say sort of before, but I don't think I've reacted to anybody that's been interviewed that served in the RAF. So it's an interesting reply. They have a selection though, don't they? They have a selection, sort of, unless that's just anything that I can think of why he might be saying sort of, and maybe he'll answer it, is that maybe it's just a standard recruitment type thing and they don't view it as a selection, even though somebody like me probably would view it as a selection. So if they're getting into the RAF and then if there's another process that they have to go through in order to be part of a specialist group within the RAF, I don't know, I would probably call that a selection, unless they just view it as another course and there's plenty of those courses in the military in general, whereby it's not a selection; it's just a course that you do to either upskill and or be able to do other things. So anyway,
like, I don't know, if you took like a very well disciplined company in the rifles or something, I think the standard is about there probably. But the RAF Regiment's also different in that people have different roles in the unit. So, you know, the raw signals will obviously complement an army unit. The RAF Regiment don't have that; they have to do their own, and so it's probably not going to be as good as the signals because they're juggling lots of different tasks, but they have to adapt to it as well. So, like, you could be on the mortar platoon or mortar support weapons flight, but you also need to be able to adapt very quickly when you don't need mortars or, you know, like all the driving qualifications. There isn't the you don't have a bigger unit around you to do all of that stuff. You have to do it all yourself. And also, I think the RAF Regiment changes roles quite quickly. So they had the CBRN role for a while. Now they're doing a lot of counter-drone stuff. They had
CBRN, is that the chemical, biological, radiation, and nuclear? When he said role, I don't know if that's a role. I'm just spitballing here because that's sort of almost similar to or maybe it's the same sort of acronym that we would use for that type of stuff. But it sounds like they wear, soldiers in the RAF wear multiple hats, SIGs, like a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. And yeah, doing their own communications. They would have their own medics, mortar line, fire support, so heavy weapons of some type or multiple types as well. Interesting. Yeah, I honestly don't know a heck of a lot at all about the RAF.
obviously the JTAC stuff. So I think average to average in terms of infantry skills, a Marine or Para is probably going to be better because that's their bread and butter. But if you need a kind of unit that is not going to be like tip of the spear jumping in and out of trenches, but you need something that can kind of just mold into a situation, the RF Regiment's pretty good at that, I'd say.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, like the jack of all trades, and I like how he described it too. A unit, if you need a unit like the RAF that can mold into various situations with and integrate with other teams, whether it's a pointy end of the spear type team and they need the intel that the RAF brings so that they know exactly where to hit certain types of assets to cause maximum impact, or whether it's with a larger assault force or a higher level of skill from the Marines or paras or regular infantry in the defence force there, and having an RAF attached to them. Man, multiple hats, JTAC as well. So calling in fast jets and all that sort of stuff, or air support. It's yeah, it sounds very cool. Surely there's a selection for that.
But I'm not going to say that, you know, the average RF Regiment guy can stick 30 kilograms on their back and walk 35 miles because I don't think they can.
Toe to toe, mate. Toe to toe. You handled that question well.
That was tricky.
Question number 3. How'd you rehearse for that question? It was very well put together.
No, but
in fact, you can't have rehearsed for it. You didn't know the question was coming.
No, I think it's it's tricky because, you know, like I'm proud of what the RF Regiment does and who they are, and like, you know, I'm gonna stick up for my mates, but I'm also like I'm a realist. I've seen what other units do and how they work, and I'm not gonna sit here and say, you know.
That's cool. Again, that's another good answer. So you should be proud of your history and who you've served and worked with, and his knowledge of what he knows they're capable of doing, and where they may not have the same level of capability, for want of a better term, they can still hold their own. And you'd want, you know, they're an important piece of the large military engine overall, right? So having that capability and having additional resources that can plug and play into your units like the Royal Marines that he spoke about and parachute regiments, etc. It can only be a good thing.
Question 3.
Yeah.
Again, from Coke. What would you tell someone considering suicide due to struggling with PTSD?
Whew. That's a heavy question, eh? And I'm sorry if I didn't mention that in here. I know I did in the live, but the title of this is There Was a Point with Me in Complex PTSD when I genuinely didn't think there was a way out of it. So, yeah, man, into it. Coke, hearty question, bro.
Wow, that's a shift.
Oh, Coke will throw these bombs in there, yeah.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't fuck about, mate.
Yeah.
I love the way H talks about him here. Coke lobbing in grenades with his questions. No, but seriously, good question, tough question. Puts this gentleman on the spot here. Now, I don't know if maybe it's him why this video was titled the way that it is, this icebreaker, but way to throw the question in there.
Yeah.
I'd have a beer with Coke. What would I say?
He will take you up on the offer, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm genuine. I
was just thinking that he would say yes. Hopefully I'll get to meet him one of these days, as well as a few other people as well over in the UK.
A beer with anyone, apart from the Taliban. Have a tea with them.
All right, give it time.
Yeah, I mean, I would. That would just not beer with them. I'd definitely sit down.
Think about
and,
like a Lucky Saint or something, or a Guinness Zero.
Yeah, maybe.
They wouldn't believe you, would they? They wouldn't believe you said alcohol.
If I turned up to Afghanistan with that, I'd be you'd disappear. There wouldn't be a third podcast.
Look, it says 0. Anyway, right. So okay, back onto the serious question. Yeah. What would you tell someone considering suicide?
I'd tell them a few things. One is, there was a point with me in complex PTSD when I genuinely didn't think there was a way out of it, and lo and behold, there was. I think it's very easy to get, overwhelmed by things and think that, think that you're a burden and you're making everything difficult for everybody else and you just need to go away. But I think ultimately, if your goal is to go away, then go to Bali. Like, there's I think the boundaries of life, your the fence that you think you're stuck inside is in your head.
Man, there's I love where he's going with his. I don't know exactly where he's going, but I love the sound of where his conversation or where his response is going. In reply to Coke's question about what would you tell somebody with PTSD, and I, although I personally have said, and I still feel this way, although I personally feel like that's taking the easy option out or the cheapskates option out in terms of those that may be struggling with PTSD and choosing to commit suicide if they do. Mean no disrespect to anybody that knows people that have gone through that or have got loved ones that have done that. That's not what I mean at all when I say that. That's just me and my interpretation of it. Is that because I haven't been to that place where I've felt like taking my own life? Probably. That's probably a large part of it. Does it mean that the struggles that I've had or you've had or we've had individually don't equate to the same, but we've found different mechanisms or ways of trying to deal with and work and navigate our way through those challenges? That could be it too, So just because I personally might not have had the thought of this world is better off without me, I might as well just take my own life, just because I don't recall having had those thoughts to myself or talking like that to myself. I know I've been in some dark places and thinking, my family's better off without me, but I've never thought about taking my own life. I've thought about, okay, my family will be better off without me. They'll be happier if I'm just not in the picture. So I'll leave them to do them. I'll still send the money to my wife's account, give her the space that she needs, give the children the breathing space that they need, and I'll just go and do my own thing, So I've thought about it, and we've had situations where we've come pretty close to that. At least 3 off the top of my head that I can recall where we've been in that situation, but never did I feel like take my life, but definitely a dark, miserable, lonely place when you're on your own and you're feeling like you're just an anchor to those that you love the most, and you don't want to be that anchor. But again, at that stage, I never had the thought of, oh, I can make this easier for them by taking my own life for those reasons that I've spoken about. So I just had other ways of navigating through that. Hearing what this guy is saying, if I can't remember the exact words, but he used the Bali analogy, then if it's not been here, then go to Bali or go to somewhere else. To me, in my head, I suppose I can resonate with that to a degree in terms of what I think he's trying to say. Like, you don't need to be gone completely from this world, so to speak, from this life. Go somewhere else for a change of scenery, whatever you might need to do to see what happens, hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to get at here. Again, mean no disrespect to people that have felt like taking their own lives, those that have loved ones who have. My wife and I have loved ones who have tried to take their own life, and I have a family member, at least one that I know of, who has succeeded in taking their life, a younger cousin of mine, first cousin. And the heaviness and sadness that leaves on the family, on his siblings, on his children, and everybody that knew him is something that they then have to carry as well. So that's part of the reason why I think it's a selfish thing to do, because it assumes that nobody cares and that they'll be just fine without that person being present anymore, which just, that's not true. They just try to find a way to work through it. Anyway, let's come back to Tom.
So I'd say if you're at that point where you're contemplating it and you're serious about it, and when I think this is why particularly veterans, because we know how to get.
I'm gonna pause this. The volume's coming through. It's like a kung fu movie. It's out of sync. So anyway, let me just go back, see if this makes a difference.
When I think this is why particularly veterans, because we know how to get shit done. If you're serious about it and you're going to do it, then just take a step back and think, what is it that is making me want to do this? And I know it's easy to then get stuck in your head and say, I can't run away from my head, but that's what therapy's for. That's what, certain drugs and experiences can help with. There's charities, there's colleagues. So it's easy to look around and think that everyone is doing something right and you're doing it wrong, and everyone else is, finding life easy, and that's just not the case. And even if you're an absolute, life biff, there's a place and a job and a role and a position in that for you, I'd say.
That's cool. I love how he's spoken about that. It's what I'm hearing when Tom is speaking. He's encouraging people to not quit, to not give up, to know that there is a place for you, for me, for us in this life. No matter what that role is, there is a place for us. And it can be as good or as bad as we want it to be. That's my take anyway. If we want something positive, then we have to be willing to work, and we have to have, I think you have to have hope to want to achieve or do the thing that you want to do. Because if you don't have that, then it's probably a lot easier to just accept your lot and where you are. Whereas I don't think that's true. I don't think you or I or we need to accept where we are. I think we can always look to do more, and I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do more, with wanting to be better, with wanting to try and be a better person, and or whether that's in the form of your profession and work that you do, in the form of physically helping somebody, whether you're a doctor or lawyers or dentists or those types of things, or whether it's building with your hands, or whether it's using social media to try to, I don't know, set some type of positive example, and or encourage others to lift themselves up and to do better as well. Anyway.
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice. Yeah.
But I mean,
we may discuss that more on the podcast, actually. That is excellent advice. Excellent advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 4. Before we move on to the actual podcast, what is your most significant moment filmmaking? And does filmmaking make you wish you had documented your own life more?
So I'll start with
most significant moment.
Yeah, I'll start with that. Was this Coke again, by chance?
Was it what?
Was this Coke again?
Coke, yeah.
Yeah.
Coke, yeah. Why did you ask if it was Coke?
Coke makes you think, hey, and I think Hugh did say that all these questions are from Coke for this icebreaker. But I think I've mentioned it in the other video as well. Coke put some time and thought into his questions. It seems anyway, to me. And even when I'm listening to these questions, he's directed these specifically to Tom through Hugh Care's podcast. And yeah, really thoughtful, most significant piece. And if he could, something along the lines of, if he could go back, or does it make him wish he could have documented his own life or filmed his own life? I wonder, you know what, I think to myself now, maybe I'd change my mind if something like that was actually able to happen. But I think now to that question for me, I would love to, if somehow was able to see your life played out as if it had been recorded. I'd love to see that, share that with my family, with my children, see the warts and all stuff from my side. Probably, I know there's some stuff in there that I wouldn't be proud of, but if it would help our children or maybe others prevent them from making similar mistakes, and see that you can still, if you have that hope that I was talking about, and if you do really want to change, and if you do want to try and be better, that it is possible, then that would probably be worth it, as far as, this is all the stupid stuff I've done. But yeah, anyway, let's come back to Tom and hear what he has to say.
Just because this guy's brain is very deep, but everywhere.
That is an excellent way to describe it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sometimes I will see questions written here for the guest, and I will be dying inside. And because I have the option to not ask the question. Like sometimes, especially in the YouTube chat, right? Coke won't mind me saying this. I'm talking about him online. Right? Yeah. No one knows who he is. No one knows his real name.
If it was a full name, I wouldn't
chat, he'll be.
And that's the thing. Like, Coke has trusted. He trusts Hugh Care, and I like to think, hopefully, he trusts me as well, to not divulge his actual name or his contact details. And yeah, and that says a lot, about him. He's, from what I understand, he's a very private person, but he's very interested. I like what Tom said, and how Hugh acknowledged what Tom said, that he's very deep but everywhere. So in regards to his questions that he asked. So anyway, let's hear what Hugh is about to say about Coke, but without obviously giving away his name and details.
Drop in questions in there, like bang, 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 if he's watching it live. And sometimes I'll skip over, because some of them I think it's not a great question, or it's not applicable, or we've already addressed that, in different part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But some of the questions he puts in on the icebreakers, I go, oh my God, I'm dying inside, because it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's a valid question. Yeah. I know it's going to make the guest feel awkward or be really difficult to answer for them or be on a
Yeah.
really difficult topic, I'm going to ask that question anyway. I
Yeah.
feel terrible doing it. I have to G myself up to ask it. I'm like, oh, man.
No, but that's
You know,
they're
it's
the
good. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
It's
they're
good,
the good
especially
ones.
when it comes to difficult topics. Like he's not afraid to put in questions there, questions about racism, sexism, gender, anything, especially when it comes to the military.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about Coke. What was your most significant moment filmmaking?
So there is a few. There's Everest, filming the avalanche and the earthquake and stuff. That was my step away from like day-to-day journalism into documentaries, which is what I love to do.
You
So
described that in the first episode, right? In the first Hey Shower, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that's one thing. But I think more recently and more relevant was we managed to film the first black rhino birth captured, like filmed in the wild, on the film we just finished. And that was a kind of natural history moment that lots of people have tried to do. None have managed.
Where
and
was
we
that?
did.
Afghan.
Kenya.
Oh, right, sorry, right,
Yeah.
No
rhinos.
you said you just come back from Afghan filming.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But we'll talk about Kenya in there.
Like rhinos in Afghan. Jesus.
Yeah. No, so I've been filming rhinos for 4 years, but we'll get onto that.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of people have tried to film black rhino births or rhino births generally. There's a couple of tourists that have caught white rhino births on cameras, have just been really lucky. But black rhinos are much more rare, way more shy. They're solitary. They give birth hidden at night in bushes, like away from everybody. It's probably been seen by a handful of people and filmed by only us. And that, like, as we were
Far out. Those sound like incredible stories, like in terms of what he's RAF military service. I assume multiple operational deployments. However long he's been a documentary person or journalist, whatever the title is for Tom these days, and traveling around the world and doing that sort of stuff, being involved in witnessing the black rhino birth as an example, something that probably only a handful of people have ever witnessed in real life. It's pretty special. Not to mention a whole bunch of other stuff, which I've no doubt missed from his first time on the HR podcast, and whether or not I get to seeing and or watching his full second episode with Hugh after this icebreaker.
were filming it, we had to tab, like, I mean, I don't know. We were in this like valley, and basically the rhino was going, up and down the valley trying to find a place that's quiet, because once they give birth, they stay there for a few days because the calf needs time to get stronger, and the mother needs to be able to leave the calf in a bush to go and feed and come back to it. So the mother's like searching for a really safe spot for it. So she had walked 5 kilometers, and because we're in a valley and we needed to stay a particular side of the wind from the rhino, we were trying to like sneak around, and we were with James May, who's former RAF Reg as well. So there was the two of us, our camera assistant, who's this huge Greek guy called Spiros, carrying the tripod. Spiros.
What a name.
I've got a story.
Is he a unit?
Is he
ripped?
He's
like
not
a Spartan.
He's not ripped. Well, so funny story with Spiros. He left Greece, worked as a barista. We just happened to meet him, and he was interested in filming, and he's just got a great attitude. So we were like, come out, why not? And there was someone involved in the film that was covering his salary and stuff. So it was.
That is cool. What a cool story. Spiros, working as a barista, I think is what I heard. He managed to meet this guy and his other mate, Tom, and whoever his other mate is. Got to chatting, and then they thought he was a great guy and invited him along. How good is that? Like having hope, something that he wants to do, taking a chance, jumping in the deep end, sparked up a conversation, and then next thing you know, he's off and over there in Kenya, by the sounds of things, about to witness a black rhino give birth live.
It's great for us. and he was absolutely amazing. And then he went back to Greece with his girlfriend and got held in the airport. And it turned out he'd dodged national service. and they stuck him in the Greek army for a year.
He's not a Spartan then.
I mean, now he's a Spartan.
Now he's a Spartan.
But yeah.
Okay, so that must have been why. Crack up. Far out. Here I was thinking, oh wow, that's an amazing story, but it's just, some people that I know of would say, oh, he's a bloody war dodger. Hey, but just on that, I don't think there's anything wrong with avoiding war. And when we end up going to war, there's the supposed leaders that we vote into, or that, those that do vote, that vote them into those positions of power. We all need to take a good hard look at ourselves. I can sit back and say, I haven't voted in however many years, which is true, but it doesn't, I don't think it frees me from the fact that these leaders are in positions and making decisions that ultimately appear to result in the loss of life and multiple lives. Anyway.
Brilliant.
I mean,
Spiros.
Yeah.
My God, Spiros.
So we were chased.
Spiros got a cool name, but it wasn't cool that he tried to dodge his military service.
This rhino up and down, James with the boom, like trying to, like the microphone. He was trying to keep that out of the bushes. I had the camera and lens, which is like makes a Jimpy look light, and Spiros with the tripod, and with the Rangers, obviously, which we'll get onto properly in the podcast. They're amazing, and this was all down to them as well. So we were like tracking this, stalking this rhino, and as soon as we filmed the birth, it was extremely stressful. But as soon as we filmed the birth, and we had it like on the camera, I was like, holy shit, because that's the moment you sort of legitimized yourself as a natural history film maker, because it's like that's a true unique behavior that has never been observed. We showed the data to scientists, showed the footage to scientists, and they gained from it. And that is the crucial bit is in the film, but it went from being like 3 months worth of work to a 12-second clip. But
let's talk more about that in the podcast. Definitely. Yeah. I want to hear that. I want to hear that story in detail. That is the end of the icebreaker. So you get away with answering the last little bolt onto that question. If you were listening to this on your podcast app, or if you're watching this on YouTube, the next episode in your list.
That was kind of Hugh to let him off the hook and answering the second part of the question. But anyway, we'll leave this one here. Thankfully, I think it probably wasn't as long as the other icebreaker one that I did a reaction to, which went for over an hour. But apologies again for those that might have been joining in during when I was doing a live reaction to this one. But I just want to try to avoid getting another copyright strike, or at least for as long as I can anyway. Hopefully, I don't get another one. But seeing as I got one from doing a live reaction to one of Big Phil Campion's, I figured I'll try and play it safe and just avoid doing live reactions to those unless I can figure out a way to do one without getting a copyright strike. If people know how I should be doing that, then feel free to drop it in the comments and let me know. But otherwise, that being said, appreciate your time as always. Anybody going through any hard times, difficulties, challenges, man, keep tuning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other, take one day at a time. It may sound repetitive. I hope it doesn't sound insincere. It's definitely sincere. I share it repetitively because, I don't know who may just need to hear it at that time. So whether it's me needs to hear it, whether it's somebody that I know, whether it's somebody that I don't know and will probably never ever meet, maybe it might just land on the ears and heart of somebody that might just need to be reminded of that at that stage. So yeah, just know that things can do and will get better if you want them to. But you do have to want them to, that the sun will shine again, that there are better days ahead, and those better days are always closer than you and I think. So just keep fighting, stick at it. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there is a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.